The Grand Bahama Port authorities say they have been and continue to be the sole regulator of electricity on Grand Bahama. Is Hutchison Whampoa partially to blame for Grand Bahama's economic challenges? And tonight we highlight a woman who shares the trials of living with lupus.
The Bahamas Tonight Northern Edition starts now.
This is the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Good evening, all. I'm Shashina Rule-Farquharson. As always, it is so great to have you with us. Topping the news this evening, ZNS News can confirm tonight that GIBC Digital is now closed and the future of the operation is in limbo. Italia Hall has our top story.
Since opening, GIBC Digital has employed more than 25 persons, but according to reports, there are now only 3 employees left. GIBC had 2 rounds of layoffs early last month. Now our ZNS News team visited the Jasmine Corporate Center on Thursday morning. The GIBC office was closed and no employees could be seen in the area. We spoke with some persons who work in the plaza who told us that they haven't seen any activity at GIBC or the employees for weeks. Unconfirmed reports say the 3 employees are now working from a remote undisclosed location. Now, according to a press release by GIBC Digital in February, the company admitted that layoffs took the company by surprise and that business had been slower than expected. But in a recent press release on May 14th, GIBC CEO Greg Wood indicated that they remain committed to the island of Grand Bahama, adding that developing business in the Bahamas continues to be a challenge and they had to make adjustments. The CEO, through that release, noted that they overestimated demand for the transformative work that the company does, and unfortunately, they had to reduce staff to align with the company's current demand, but the suggestion that the company is leaving is simply not true. The digital company opened their doors in June of last year. At that time, the $2.5 million investment was expected to inject some $50 million into Grand Bahama's economy as the company focuses on automation, cybersecurity, and data intelligence. Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
In other news, a local attorney calling out a major player in Grand Bahama for some of the island's shortfalls and failures. Hutchison Whampoa owns 50% of the airport as well as Freeport Harbor and has management control over both entities. Well, tonight, a local attorney shares why he believes Hutchison is failing this island miserably. Grand Bahama has seen its fair share of challenges, closures of businesses, and high unemployment numbers. And while this economy continues to struggle, attorney Carrie Leonard says there's one entity that is partially to blame, the company that has responsibility for the airport and the harbor.
I think Hutchison has been a terrible investor. They treat it literally, both of them, as a private run thing. Yes, it's private, but it provides a service to the public, and they don't see it that way at all. When I look at the way the airport, we didn't have night flights for 2 or 3 weeks after Hurricane Matthew. Everybody else had brought in containerized generators and things like that. Do you mean to tell me that after going through Floyd, Francis, Jean, Sandy, Wilma, that they didn't know there was a possibility that they wouldn't have electricity at the airport and have taken precautions and set up measures so that they would be able to provide the same? To me, that's either incompetence or negligence. It's one or the other. And so we need somebody to come in and run both. And the lighting at the harbor, when you spoke to people who were trying to bring stuff in, the lighting at the harbor in the evening was extremely poor. Nobody really thought how they were going to deal with that. And so again, I say that the harbor and the airport need to be taken out of the hands of Hutchison.
He says more could have been done to assist in Grand Bahama's rebound.
The interesting thing was they also owned the hotel. They could have had lower rates of the hotel in order to bring people in to help look at land and develop the DevCo area. So a lot of the development hasn't occurred simply because Hutchison didn't see how to do it that way. And unfortunately, the regulator did not push those particular elements along. I'm sure Edward St. George thought he had found somebody with a lot of money and if utilized the way he was doing things, could have really developed the island of Grand Bahama.
He adds that the airport and harbor can be taken away through a compulsory acquisition, adding that this was done before at the Rock Sound Airport.
What happens is the government must, by law, compensate you for the value of what they've just taken from you. Many people say, oh, you can't do this. If you do a compulsory acquisition, foreigners will be scared away and everything. Well, we did a compulsory acquisition in Eleuthera. I don't think Eleuthera suffered too badly from that. As a matter of fact, when you look at the investment in Eleuthera, they probably have more than we have.
But the fear is that if that happens, Hutchison may also pull out from the container port, leaving hundreds out of work.
They don't own all of that container port. They may have the majority in it, but they don't own the whole thing. And if they were to pull out, then we'd find somebody else to fill it, just as we've done with the, we'll do with the hotel.
Switching gears now, executives of the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority on Grand Bahama last week spearheading a series of town hall meetings throughout the island, while a number of residents had the opportunity to ask questions and express their concerns. Now, one of the top questions for IRCA was whether or not they had the authority to regulate the Grand Bahama Power Company. While noting that they have had some challenges in the past, CEO of IRCA, Stephen Barreau, insisted that they are indeed the regulatory authority for all electricity providers in the country, including the Grand Bahama Power Company. Well, following those meetings, the Grand Bahama Port Authority issued a release essentially contradicting those claims. Megan Shepard joins us now with the details.
The statement reads that the Grand Bahama Port Authority Limited, GBPA, under the powers vested in it by the Hawksbill Creek Agreement, has been and still is the sole regulator for all utilities in the Freeport zone since 1956. Officials say that as the Utilities Regulatory Authority in the city of Freeport, GBPA in 2012 recognized that there was a need to strengthen the regulatory regime by implementing a regulatory framework and operating protocol in accordance with international best practices. This framework not only provides an objective and transparent process for rate setting, but also establishes a regime of efficiency and customer service standards designed to secure greater levels of customer protection. The port insists that the framework was and remains the first of its kind and the most advanced set of regulations within the Bahamas, which clearly outlines the expectations of GBPA as the regulator. In 2012, through the implementation of the framework, GBPA promised that Emera's performance in Grand Bahama will be measured against benchmark standards within the Caribbean, with the goal of remaining within the lowest cost energy provider in the region and challenge the Grand Bahama Power Company to improve reliability, stabilize cost, and invest in clean energy solutions. The statement continues, stating that since the implementation of the framework, along with consistent oversight by the Regulatory Committee, GBPC is currently ranked as one of the lowest energy providers in comparable utilities for low-energy residential customers and among the lowest in the Caribbean in residential customers across all classes. GBPA says that they are cognizant of the ongoing fluctuation of oil prices throughout the world, resulting in rate volatility, and as regulators, they approved a fuel hedging program. This has resulted in fuel costs decreasing by 50% since 2012, allowing customers' fuel charge to remain fixed at 10 cents until 2021, despite increases in global oil prices. In addition, GBPA says that they are encouraging a commitment to clean energy, adding that the framework also paved the way for the development of the first utility-scale solar plant in the country. The plant will have a total installed capacity of 3.3 megawatts, capable of supplying enough electricity to support over 850 homes on Grand Bahama. This visionary undertaking will help to reduce CO2 emissions annually by over 4,200 tons. The statement concludes that the GBPA, through its keen regulatory oversight, has demonstrated its commitment to improving utility services in Freeport by not only ensuring a very efficient and reliable service, but also encouraging a more competitive cost. Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
Meantime, the president of the Grand Bahama Port Authority says that they are satisfied that the economy is headed in the right direction. As we continue our series, The President Speaks, the Port Authority chief says based on projections, the economy is on a positive trajectory. Italia Hall has more.
Bahamians to own a piece of this economy and not just be workers. So we felt the urgency to get Bahamians involved in the process.
In March of this year, a mega project was announced by Carnival Cruise Lines for a $100 million cruise port in East Grand Bahama. It is anticipated to be the largest Carnival cruise port in the world and will provide some 1,000 jobs. The president of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Ian Roll, says Carnival officials are now in the process of conducting engineering and environmental work.
Carnival, they're very eager to move this project forward. The date that they have set to open up this cruise port is 2021, and therefore they have the resources, and they are very willing and able. So the government, the Port Authority, all significant stakeholders are on board to make sure this project happens.
And on March 27th, a letter of intent was signed by Royal Caribbean and the ITM Group for the purchase of the Grand Lucayne Resort and the redevelopment of the Freeport Harbor. Roll says the port fully supports the deal.
That group we would have spoken to in regards to the redevelopment of the harbor even before the hotel was considered. So we totally support ITM and Royal Caribbean because we've had previous discussions with them.
He says he believes tourism and the growth of Grand Bahama is directly linked to the Grand Lucayne property.
Because we need to get more rooms open and available on the island. That then will bring more airlift into Grand Bahama. And also there are other players that are looking at that particular development to determine if they're going to move forward with other developments on the island. So that is key for the development of the tourism product on the island, that we get the Grand Lucayne open up as soon as possible.
But as it relates to the International Bazaar, the president says it remains a challenge for the Port Authority.
You have 13, 14 individual owners, and to get 13 or 14 individual owners to move in one direction is a very difficult thing, especially when they have different values for their properties in their minds. So that continues to be a challenge for us.
The port president says they continue to work very closely with the government, which he feels is necessary for Grand Bahama's success.
Both of us control key parts of the economy, meaning business licensing. The government controls immigration and has influence over banking, etc. And we work hand in hand because you need all these different pieces to make things happen.
It's Italia Hall, ZNS Network News.
And another group of graduates completing studies at the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute. Graduates were told that their studies have prepared them for a technologically savvy world. Megan Shepard explains.
Family and friends celebrating with the newest cohort of graduates of the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute. President of the Institute, Dr. Robert Robertson, commending the graduates for their decision to undertake this life-changing journey. He says it is important for them to remain lifelong learners.
And made better.
Training our students to sit and pass these international exams validates our promise to provide learning opportunities that enable individuals to be globally competitive and economically independent. That's our mission statement. The skills acquired by you through BTVI are in demand all over the world. You are in demand.
Guest speaker and principal of VKR Insights, Valdez Russell, also congratulating the graduates. He notes that technical and vocational occupations are in high demand and that their contributions will aid to the positive development of this nation.
Your gifts will make room for you. As our nation attracts global opportunities, each of us within this space must act locally and think globally. Be innovative within your areas of expertise and resist the temptation to duplicate what others are doing. Your journey must look different, feel different, because this is your journey. As we celebrate with each of you today, I challenge you to write your own story and build a positive legacy that more Bahamians can be inspired by.
He adds that as they enter the workforce or take the path of entrepreneurship, they must be cognizant to raise the standards.
At this time for us graduates, it's important for you to be in the B category. Be on time, be your best, and be the first choice and not the last consideration. This applies to you who will work for yourselves and those of you who will work for others. Bring your best customer service strategy to attract, retain loyal customers.
Now, outstanding awards went to Katushka McIntosh for office administration, Mark Russell for electronics engineering installers, Keandra Knowles for construction technology, and Danisha Bain for welding. Megan Shepard, ZNS Network News.
In news from the courts, a man hauled before the court today in connection with that attack on a security officer by a pack of pit bulls. The security officer telling ZNS News this week that he was riding his bicycle home a week ago when he was attacked by a pack of pit bulls in the area of Erickson Drive. In court today, 27-year-old Joseph Whitfield appeared before Deputy Chief Magistrate Debbie Ferguson and pled not guilty to the ferocious dog attack, negligently causing harm and causing damage. Whitfield was given bail in the amount of $900 with two sureties. The case was adjourned until July 3rd. Now, the victim in this case, Johnny Jones, is still recovering from that attack. You're watching the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition. Stay with us. There's more news right after the break.